Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. Since the Israel-Hamas war started in October last year, American troops stationed in Iraq and Syria have been attacked about 150 times by Iran-aligned militants. Now, the attacks against the Americans are seen as retaliation for America's support of Israel for its war on Gaza. On the 20th of January, at least about a dozen missiles were fired at a military base used by the US-led coalition forces in western Iraq. Now, the attack was attributed to Kataib Hezbollah. In retaliation, the United States carried out strikes in Iraq against 3 facilities linked to Kataib Hezbollah on the 23rd of January. In what could be perceived as a victory for the Iran-backed militia, both the Iraqi and the American government announced on the 25th of January that they'll begin talks soon to wind down the mission of a US-led military coalition that was formed originally to fight the so-called Islamic State in Iraq. Now, exacerbating the situation are Yemen's Houthis, who in continuation of their attacks claimed on the 26th of January that their naval forces had launched a missile attack on the British oil tanker Martin Luanda, setting the vessel on fire. The question is this: is the United States at this moment at risk of being drawn into a wider conflict in Iraq and other parts of West Asia, given its tacit support of the Israeli bombardment of Gaza?
The United States has had a continuous presence in Iraq since its 2003 invasion. Though in 2011, all US combat forces had left, thousands of troops returned in 2014 in order to help the Iraqi government defeat the Islamic State. An estimated 2,500 US troops are deployed in Iraq today, in addition to some 900 in Syria. Since the Israel-Hamas war broke out on October 7th last year, American military installations have been struck more than 60 times in Iraq and over 90 times in Syria by Iran-backed militants. A mix of drones, rockets, mortars and ballistic missiles have been used for these attacks in retaliation to United States support of Israel in its war against Iran-backed Palestinian militant group Hamas. On the 20th of January, in the most serious attack this year, Kataib Hezbollah fired multiple ballistic missiles at Ain al-Assad air base in western Iraq. 4 US personnel suffered injuries and a member of Iraq's security forces was seriously injured in this attack launched from inside Iraq. Al-Assad is a large air base in Iraq's western desert where US troops have trained Iraqi security forces and now coordinate operations to counter the threat posed by the Islamic State. In a retaliatory strike 4 days later, the US CENTCOM forces conducted airstrikes against 3 facilities used by Kataib Hezbollah and other Iran-affiliated groups in Iraq. These strikes targeted Kataib Hezbollah headquarters, storage and training locations for rocket, missile and one-way attack UAV capabilities. The US retaliatory attack killed a Kataib Hezbollah fighter, triggering calls for US forces to leave. A couple of days later, the 2 governments announced plans to begin talks to wind down the mission of a US-led military coalition in Iraq. The US says the talks were first discussed last year and the timing is not related to the attacks.
I think the HMC meeting is not a negotiation about the withdrawal of US forces in Iraq. It is about what the future looks like for the US and Iraqi bilateral relationship. So part of the factors that we're taking into consideration, the ISF's capabilities, the operational environment, and then of course the threat of ISIS, those are all going to be part of these conversations on exactly what our footprint looks like within Iraq, and that's what this working group is for. There's no timeline set, and again, these meetings are not about a negotiation or a withdrawal from Iraq.
Though the United States denies it, the timing is suspect, since the Iraqi officials have periodically called for a withdrawal of coalition forces for years, especially after the killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani and Iraqi militia leader Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. in a US airstrike in January 2020 outside the Baghdad airport. Compounding matters for the US is the belligerence of the Iran-backed Houthis, who have targeted Israeli-owned, flagged or operated ships or ships heading to the Israeli ports since November last year. In response, the US and UK have carried out multiple rounds of airstrikes on the Houthi targets in Yemen, but the Houthis have remained defiant and the attacks on vessels have persisted. On the 25th of January, members of the Bani al-Harith tribe, supporters of the Houthis, held a rally in the north of Sana'a, showcasing their arms and announcing their readiness for a confrontation.
We say to America, Israel and Britain, you will not occupy Yemen nor Palestine. We will sink you, your battleships and your ships in the sea. This Yemeni people will make a graveyard for the invaders. We are ready to confront wherever they want, on land and at sea, as we are on the lookout for them.
Given the impending eventual reduction of US forces raises questions about sustainability of US counter-Islamic State mission in Syria as well. Is the US's announcement its first step to avoid the risk of being pulled into a wider conflict in Iraq, Yemen and beyond? Only time will tell.